everybody, welcome to the next big rush. Uranium is still doing extremely well, as I have been pounding the table and talking about for a very long time. And who better than Dev Hernawa, CEO of Strathmore Plus Uranium, to come and talk to you about what is this all about. He's been around the block a few times within this business, and we are going to talk about, all the different opportunities within Strathmore and his company, and also uranium. So if you're even remotely interested in uranium, this is going to be a real value to you. Dev, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. And your timing is impeccable. I mean, uranium today, $77. Now, you and I have been talking about this for some time now. And when is uranium going to snap? That was the big question when it was $50, $60. And, we kept, like you said, we're both pounding the table saying the price has to go up. You can't continue to suppress. The demand keeps going up. And, we kept saying, it was like, we're literally talking in an echo chamber about how else are you going to have more energy and cleaner energy except through nuclear. We kept saying that. What's happened now is that, when big countries like Sweden say, we want 2 big reactors coming in, and then suddenly the utilities are waking up. So I think what we were saying, there's been a lag, but finally people are realizing that we need energy, we need clean energy, and nuclear has to be part of that mix because, as we joked about, I joke with my friends, is that renewables are the socialists of the energy mix. They don't work very much, and they expect to be bailed out by the government when they don't. And that's exactly what renewables are. Just because, like we've talked about, just because something has a capacity for X amount of energy to come out of a solar plant, it doesn't mean it will, because the sun may not shine. And just because the wind, numbers could be higher, but you don't always know you're going to have wind. So, mankind can't tell the sun to shine, the wind to blow. And because of that, we'll never get to those numbers. And obviously Germany is your poster child for foolishness. They embarked on this renewables journey, and they spent $1 trillion, went nowhere with it. But America did it under Obama as well. Look, we all love great stories, but the problem is when fairy tale hits physics, it doesn't work. So I think finally physics is overcoming the platitudes, as they would say. And being in the US, much as I am, I'm seeing for the first time in my career that the Republicans have pushed for nuclear for a long time, and saying we've got to have our own energy, our own supply of energy, and we can't let countries like Russia, whatever, control the tap on us. They don't want to be a Germany or a Ukraine, whatever. We've got to control our own energy mix. And the Democrats are finally coming around, realizing, if we want to get to net zero, we're going to have to include nuclear in it, because we want green energy, and renewables are not working. They've never worked, but people believe they could. They believe there's a fallacy out there amongst the greenies that if we pump enough money into this, it'll happen. Well, it's not, because you don't control the wind and you don't control the sun. And we don't do that. And so as much as you can try to throw more money at this, it just won't work.
Math is math, and math wins out in the end. And this is the fun about being, in such an investment thesis where you're standing on one side and you're saying, like, look, guys, this must happen. And then finally you start to see that people are moving over to your side and actually agreeing with you. And you touched upon the US, which is something we're definitely going to talk about, because I think that the US is absolutely ripe for a nuclear renaissance, not just in, going into SMRs and building more nuclear power plants, but most importantly, securing their own just nuclear cycle, from mining to conversion to enrichment. I think that the US is making moves that's signaling very strongly to keep this very much in-house, not trusting the East or any other country outside of its borders, which I think, is just basic common sense, especially for a country like the US that, can get into political trouble very easily. But before we go into that topic, you were here whenever there was, what we call the last big cycle in uranium, and you saw
Right.
it happen. You were involved, in the mining business, and you knew the players. How do you see that last cycle compared to this cycle that we're living through now?
Well, they're very similar in some ways. I would say that they're similar in that, eventually non-utility players got involved and they started buying the uranium. And that's what you're seeing already, between, Spot is your best example. They're being very aggressive, and, they believe uranium is worth $200. So they're going to continue to buy it. And so we did have that before. But the difference I see now is that the greenies have come around. This is to me, countries now are saying we need nuclear power. You didn't have that going on before. You didn't have Democrats saying we've got to have more nuclear power. Now, that's the big difference, I would say, from the last cycle for me. That the Republicans and people are always saying we've got to have energy. We got to stay away from having Russia or somebody else control our tap of energy. But now you're seeing the other side, which is really, from my perspective, that's the biggest difference. Is now the environmentalists, which are the core often of the Democrats, they are saying we've got to have nuclear power if we want to reduce our emissions.
So within the US, you have something really interesting, because it used to be, and most people coming into the thesis today won't really get this until they do some homework. The US used to be number one producer of uranium, way back in the, I guess, 60s to 80s or something like that. And you had, great jurisdictions. You have Utah, you have Wyoming, which is my favorite one, which is also where Strathmore is. And then you had all of these projects, all of these deposits, which were kind of completely forgotten, after 3 Mile Island and other things. It just kind of declined. And then they just kind of sat there. But the uranium is there, and we know the uranium is there. Now I guess the task of, the companies in the US is to go and figure out how much of it there is. You guys have 3 really interesting projects. And I am very surprised that Agate is coming out as such a promising, project within, your portfolio. I just read here, you guys just put this out today. Strathmore hits uranium mineralization on 93% of holes drilled. Tell us more about what you're finding there.
Oh, we were shocked too. Don't worry. Listen, yeah, like you said, there are a lot of properties in the US, but the problem has been economics. When I got in the industry, Kazakhstan was 5%. Now they're 40 to 60%, depending which number you use. So they're a big player now, because they can simply produce cheaper than the US. Simple as that. So grade matters. If we taken out Kazakhstan, right, then we would have produced more of our own. But the reality is, that they just do it. They do it so much cheaper. They don't have the environmental controls we have, et cetera, et cetera. Cost of labor is pennies there. And so they can produce uranium much cheaper than we can. As to what our projects, when I worked with John DeJoya in our previous company called Strathmore, and we became friends. But over the years, even though I focused on Canada, and we stayed friends. And so I went to him when uranium was starting to run, and I said, why don't we think about projects in the US? We had 2 decisions we had 2 ways to go. One, buy projects that were, I call them pigs, and I put lipstick on them and sell them as an option on the price of uranium, which is a strategy that works. You know, it's not economic now at 100, but at 200 it will be. So it plays as a leverage play. You can do that, right? And some people have done it quite successfully. Or we can use our mind and find projects that were dropped for the wrong reasons. And so and that's where John's mind went to work. And along with Terrence, that's where Beaver Rim came about. We know uranium is there, and we knew there's uranium at Agate, and we knew uranium, but that's from old. The problem in the US is people don't have to record their data. Meaning in Canada, if I do some work up at my property, I have to send my information into the government. Government looks at it. Okay, you keep the property for another year. That stays as public information. That's not the situation in the US. So even though Beaver Rim has been drilled, it doesn't at all mean that we can find it. And those who drilled it keep it to themselves. So getting information is really hard. Thankfully, we have humans who have memories. And I know that John and Terrence knew that had been drilled, had been let go. So we grabbed it. And the same thing with Night Owl. John had been there as literally 50 years ago. That was producing in the 50s, early 60s. And so he knew it had been mined. The question is, how much is there? So the question in all of our three projects was, we knew there was uranium there. We didn't know what, right? Now, Agate, with some confidence, but Kerr-McGee, the chemical of that time frame in the 70s, had drilled it. And so we knew there was uranium there. And so also we got some help from the university locally. They had been waiting for someone to come along to explore this area. And they went and got a grant for several $100,000 to help us solve the mystery of what's there. So I think, so that's what I think it's helped a lot, is to have local help. There's local data there. There's data, and the uranium is consistent. I get excited when geologists get excited, okay? When Ray and Sam in Canada get excited, I have reason to going, okay, A1B conductor, there's something there. There's something big waiting for us there, because they say it, they see the excitement. Same thing here. These guys, John and Terrence, they saw it, and they said, there is uranium there. And the results came out, and it was a perfect roll front. The rock looked gorgeous. I mean, we have pictures of it. We knew we're onto something right away in the first few holes. Now the rest of them have all hit pretty well. I mean, by definition, you're going to miss some because you're going to keep stretching out. You drill till you miss, so you're going to miss eventually. So that's like almost 100% hit if you actually think through the math. Yeah, we're very excited. It's like the Cinderella story almost with Agate. It's plus it's in a great area. Next to us is UEC, UR Energy, and they've all got permits. So if we want, our next step is to figure out how much uranium we have. The next step really is how many we've got, and try to cut a deal with one of those two guys and say, okay, if you're going to mine, we'll mine with you. We won't have to go through the permits. We can put our uranium hopefully with them. And as you know, publicly, John Cash at UR Energy has talked about that with us, that he's got the permits. We've got some good properties that we can throw in with them. So it's good to be amongst the giants. I'm glad that they let these properties go, that we're able to get them for practically nothing. Again, our strategy has always been in Canada and US, two separate management, but the same thing, get property cheap and use our minds instead of our cash trying to buy. That's why, by the way, the number of shares outstanding is so low on Strathmore, because we didn't issue millions of shares to buy assets, right? That's what you typically have to do. We literally paid $10,000 to buy our properties. So That's why our market cap is, 25 million. Yet we've got a property that's going to show some uranium on it. That's ridiculous. The stock should be much higher than it is right now if you believe that pounds matters to market cap.
Yeah, and I'm looking even at the grade here because obviously you have to adjust your expectation to the type of deposit that you have in that jurisdiction. But you guys are hitting like 8.5 feet of 0.114% uranium. Like that's considered high grade for the type of deposit that you guys have. Can you briefly touch upon that?
Yeah, actually the grade doesn't matter a lot. Long as it's consistent for the area. Because literally what you do, the uranium membrane in an ISR sits below the water table. So basically you're going to drill here, okay, push liquid through, these liquids pick up the uranium, come to the top, and you collect it in a slurry, right? And so when you look at a ISR mine, you take a look at it, it's going to look like a bunch of water plants out there. All you're going to see is literally you're going to see these, and it doesn't even look like a mine. It just looks like a farm, actually. And so, but they are just water plants, is what they really are. But you're picking up the uranium with these solutions. So if it's not like with digging a hole and you get this rock.
You're not mining the rock out of the ground, right? You're pumping fluids into it.
You may just have to take longer, but you'll get that uranium out. But obviously grade matters because you want to, it does matter. But what matters more is permeability, porosity. All these things matter a lot more up here. ISR is the only way uranium will be close to being economic in the U.S. Anything that's a rock type, hard rock mining in the U.S., it's only 1 mill, first of all. If you can do hard rock, you have to use a mill. There's only 1 mill. And I don't know what it would take to permit a mill in this time frame. But I do know is what will work is ISR because it is working. Just ask these wonderful men all around us that are doing it.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Your Energy is currently or just about to switch on, one of their projects at half this grade for ISR. So we know that this works for sure.
John is a very strong technical individual. They got a great team over there. I went to the property. John and his team did a great job of showing us around, and they're ready to go. If there's a company that I'm a shareholder, after I spent some time with him on the phone, I went and bought the stock. He didn't have anything insider. I just loved his. He reminded me so much of Ray, Sam, and Ross, all the guys I've worked in the past, of how they go at things, methodically, and that's what John does and his whole team. So that's why I bought the stock, was simply because of who the people are. The stock's up 150%.
Yeah, they seem to be pretty down to earth, Your Energy. I like that about them. So what can people, investors expect moving forward? Because you have Beaver Rim, you have Agate, you have Night Owl, and you have some interesting, I think, geophysics regarding Night Owl as well. There's also permitting, there's all this work that's yet to be done. I don't envy you on the amount of work that you have to do with at least 2-3 companies. But what's next?
Sometimes they call you the CEO, but really, it's so well run by Ray and Sam, and same thing with Terrence, and behind the scenes, Jamie Bannerman, and Jordan help a lot, to sort some of the things out. So, we've got Ryan and Jeremy as well. Like, we've got a small team, and we are trying to add to it. But it's all about hiring the right people, hoping they have the same DNA as you in terms of work ethic and et cetera. And that's the whole key. So, it's just a title. Tomorrow morning, Ray could be the CEO. Nothing would really change in the company. Tomorrow, somebody else could be Strathmore. Terrence could do it. It's not. The key is to build a team. The key is chemistry. I go out of my way. when I'm in Kelowna, I've had John and Terrence stay at my house, right? Because there's conversation you have late at night that you may not have if you're both staying in hotel rooms. They stayed with me here a lot. We save a lot of money, but more importantly, we build chemistry. I always believe people work together better if they get to know each other's. They walk in each other's shoes a little bit, and you talk out things. And again, pay well. There's nothing makes me happier than paying a bonus to somebody who didn't expect it. I've had staff say, I've never had a bonus in my life. I've never had stock options in my life. I'm just a secretary or something. We have a rule in our company that I have a rule that if I'm given a bonus, everybody must be given a bonus. Otherwise, I won't take it because it's not fair. It's not fair for the few at the top to make a bunch of money and everybody doesn't benefit. It's not good. It's not morally right. And eventually you'll pay the price for it in the long term.
Absolutely. So are you guys going to be drilling Agate further, or are you going to Night Owl, Beaver Rim?
It's all weather pending. If something was to happen to weather tomorrow, we'll be back out there. We got to get permits and stuff. But as we have proven, look, there's challenges in everything we do. The key is to hire people and to handle those challenges. And I think we have the right team. And again, it's a screaming buy, in my view. You got a $25 million company, Canadian, that's got drilled out uranium. That's crazy. I mean, like I said, it's a screaming buy. And it's in the US. I mean, I do believe uranium in safe jurisdictions like Wyoming, right? Wyoming is, in my place, the only place to be, in my view.
Why? In the US, why is Wyoming such a great jurisdiction? We talk a lot about that.
For ISR, I'll say this way, there's nobody has got the perfect settings in that view. It's all the infrastructure is still there. You go into that town, okay? You go for, let's say, grab a beer at a bar there. You talk uranium, everybody goes, yes, we want it. They don't ask you if they use it for bombs. If you go into 90% of the cities in this country, I'm in Phoenix right now, people don't know what uranium is for. Uranium built Casper along with oil and gas. They love it there. So you're not going to have this NIMBY thing, right? So that's number one. So that leads to good infrastructure. It leads to good attitude amongst politicians. Lastly, you've got to have the roads and be able to get permits done. I remember we were trying to get something done in Utah once, and the lady said, we don't have those forms anymore. I said, what do you mean? She goes, we don't have the forms to fill out anymore. No one's used it for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think it's just, they've had it. They have a good experience with it. They created so many great jobs. You have a university that actually has a section of people working on uranium, new ideas. And by the way, they've been to our property and they're doing some interesting ideas how to identify other roll fronts. They're going to take our information and probably use some AI, as my guess, and say, okay, where else is there going to be uranium on your property, and et cetera. So we're excited to work with the university, and it'll help us think outside the box, hopefully.
That is super exciting. And to hear that a university has, like people actually that not only care about uranium and nuclear, but they're actively involved in it and excited to do so. Like that's pretty rare. And I think Wyoming is the one place where you're going to find all these things.
If one summer you are anywhere near the US or something, and I'll get Terrence to host you. And like I said, uranium helped build Casper. It's not a dirty word. It's never been a dirty word. They have common sense there. They know world needs, the bottom line is people should own Strathmore because it's got an asset now. We'll see how big the asset is, and we'll crunch some numbers. Super low market cap. It's in the US, it's in Wyoming, and uranium is solving two of the world's biggest problems. We need energy and we need clean energy.
Clean energy, 100%.
And so you have security of supply. Okay, you have a nuclear reactor, it's there. You don't have to move it through pipelines. You don't have to do that. So security of supply and clean energy. So those are the two biggest demands in the world right now, is energy and clean energy. Uranium, nuclear power is the only way we're going to get there, even close to net zero.
And we finally have the politicians agreeing with us, which, you know, if you can get that, then can't be that bad, because that only happens once in a lifetime. Dev, thank you so much. Strathmore Plus Uranium is a company that I hold near and dear to my heart. It's one that I've been pounding the table even before I personally owned it and became a partner with you guys, and still hold a very nice core position. Thank you so much. I hope to speak to you soon about more uranium and more news from Strathmore.
And when you want to talk to some brighter people, you can talk to Ray and you can talk to Terrence and stuff and John. And, you know, you have to, these guys aren't, we don't work together. We love working together, and obviously having success matters a lot. And, you know, these companies are in very good hands, and everybody needs to know the management and shareholders are aligned. You know, our goal is long-term shareholder wealth. And I believe we've been doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
100%. Thank you so much, Dev. Hope to speak to you soon. All the best.
Thanks.